thank you for tuning in. I'm Marianne van Zyl from Switch On to Life, and thank you for your time today. I'm here with Danelle, Esterhuizen today, and it's an absolute honor and privilege for me to have you here. And I welcome you, and we are really looking forward to hear Danelle's story with regards to gentle strength. That is our theme for today. And we're looking forward to learning from you and your story, and also to see what we might find motivational or even inspirational, and something that we can practically go and use in our lives. So we thank you and we honor you for that. Welcome.
Thank you, Marianne. It's really a pleasure for me to be here and an honor.
Awesome.
I just want to take an opportunity to thank you also for the investment that you make in people's lives. Yeah, it bears fruit, and I honor you for that.
Sure. Thank you, Danelle. So, I asked around a theme, and she mentioned one that she really found quite profound for her, and it is the theme of gentle strength. So I just wanted to ask you, so how would you define the concept gentle strength?
Sure. So a while ago, let's say 15 years ago, I would really not have believed that gentle strength can fit next to one another in the same sentence.
Sure.
For me, it was like a paradox. It was, how can you be gentle and strong? You know, you're either strong or you're a softie. You can't be both.
Sure.
And it's at that time when I also started my career in a corporate environment. And I was really, I think disillusioned is perhaps a good word, because it was a strong sense of, is this what it's going to be like? The prevailing culture for me was really dominating and manipulative and controlling. So that's when my journey with gentle strength started. So I don't have an academic view or definition about it, but for me it's really around, if you think about a tennis ball and you have it in your hands, gentleness for me is, how do I carry that person in front of me, or working with me, or a client or a spouse? How do I carry that person's heart in my hand?
Sure.
How does I deal with that? How do I relate with that?
Yeah.
But also, how do I carry my own heart in that way? How do I deal with my own worth, and how gentle can I go about with myself?
Sure.
And then strength for me is really about endurance and finishing strong and consistently doing that. So how do I really care about the people around me, their hearts, my own heart, in an enduring way, so that it brings inspiration to those around me, so that other people can be built up as they engage with me.
Sure. Wow. Just listening to that, just to hear the paradox of it, and also one can really hear the insight that has almost like dropped in your heart with regards to that endurance concept, and not losing the person while moving with something, or having an idea, or having one's own aspirations or ideas in one's head. You know, when one sometimes can become so excited about a concept, or in conversation, I hear so many people feel that people, when they share something, or that people don't really listen, people don't stop and care to just take note, even if it's just to acknowledge the person in the room, and at the meeting, or even at social gatherings, where people feel, I was there, but did people really realize that I was there and that it mattered? And I think that is so needed, especially, working in a more corporate environment like you do. That makes me very excited to hear that concept of really pausing, being present with somebody, realizing this is somebody with a story, with a heart, with a purpose, with a human being standing here, and doing that in the long term. I can just imagine the legacy, that can contain, not only for you, but if we can start functioning like that. So wow, that's awesome. So for you, what would you say? What would you say does that mean to you? Living like that in your life now.
So you now speak about the head. And being present. So for me, it's almost the image that I had to learn. I'm quite a doer and executor and quite driven in nature and task orientated. So the slower and the softer stuff, even though it's part of me, was still something that I had to learn and to practice because I want to do things quickly. And if you sometimes act in a gentle way, it feels like you're slowing down. So the concept for me around the head, but also the hands, but also the heart, and to bring all three of that into every situation can not only help you make a good decision or influence the outcome of that conversation, but it can direct, like you said, the outcome of someone's life. Because it has that impact if you pause and you bring your whole self, and we'll most probably speak about that later, when you bring your whole self to the situation. Another thing for me, Marianne, was to really be authentic to who I am. So in the early days of my career, I tried to adopt to the prevailing culture, and I tried to be more dominant and more controlling. And the thing is, you can actually learn that. And it had two outcomes which I really did not like. The one was just I did not like who I had become. Really just hard and dominant and almost unemotional and undetached to people. Because it was the way that I felt I had to behave. But a second outcome was it's learned behavior, acquired behavior, and it's not really who you are. And that gap created, it's almost like an integrity gap for me in my personal life. So in the early days of my career, I felt like who I'm portraying to be and who I am, it's not the same person. So I'm not living with integrity. And that had a conflicting just pull into different directions. So that authenticity, to really be true to yourself and live according to your values in all situations, was tough for me to learn, but it's so freeing when you get to a space where you are comfortable with who you are, and that knowing that what you bring is a gift without being arrogant, but then to steward those relationships and situations.
And what you're saying is such a journey, eh? This isn't something that happened to you overnight, as you say, 15 years. But also it speaks so much of becoming vulnerable in understanding who you are and being okay with showing up with who you are. But now I just want to also, we'll connect with that again, because I'm very interested in that part and in your story. But also just to reiterate the thing about stepping into the space of needing to control things, and by me needing to control things, I need to numb, I need to be harder on myself but on other people, and become so task oriented almost, and to some extent expect people around us to also behave like that. Would you say it's quite prevalent even now in corporate or office environment, business environment?
I would say yes. I think it's a coping mechanism for lots of people, and I personally had to learn through a journey when I stopped being controlling and I wanted to be who I am, and I really strive to just be myself. I still found that I hid certain bits of myself. So it's now I don't fake it to the other side, but I don't expose my whole self to everyone in every situation, because that can still be seen as weakness or opportunistic to take a chance. I guess it's not always a safe space to be vulnerable. And I had to learn courage to really show up and bring my whole self to every situation. And that for me was an identity journey. When I figured out my identity and I became secure in who I am and who I'm not, I was more comfortable with that. But I do see it around. I see people wearing masks. It just hide all the personal pain. And you come to work or you come to a situation and you just cope. And the moment when you start to pause and you realize how much hurt there is around you, and we all just drive towards a single thing that we want to achieve in the workplace. But if you take a moment and you see what people are struggling with, it is really, there's an opportunity to invest in people and to inspire people. But I also see the results in my team. The more I lead with courage and vulnerability, the more I grow in empathy, the better my team performs, because they actually also, they feel safe. So they can let go of their armor.
And it's almost like you create a space where they want to be there. And if you create that kind of space, I can imagine that people, they engage better, and more engaged people just want to think differently. They just want to innovate. They just, want to come up with an answer, a solution, and that drive is instilled almost like without that being the focus, which is actually fantastic if you think about it. But I was thinking when you said earlier as well about there is a balance, it's almost like there's a boundary line that it isn't about, when we start realizing that, this mask isn't serving me anymore, or me needing to fit in exactly into this mold isn't serving me or anybody, or this expectation I thought I had, to meet or need to be this person, isn't serving me anymore. It's becoming unhealthy for me in my relationships and in myself. And so when people start that journey of really embracing who they are and who they're not, as you just said, it's almost as if there is a boundary line drawn that I'm okay to be me, and I don't have to be that for you. So just referring to the boundaries concept, just knowing that there's that balance where one can share and show and be there and engage, but there is a sense that there's a point where that level of sharing is only for a few people in one's life, and that there's certain things that some people do not have to fully understand or engage in you. It's not their responsibility, because that's not the kind of relationship they have with you. How do you feel about that kind of statement?
Yeah, I fully support that.
Okay, cool.
I think I was more erring on the side of caution, and that's why I also kind of protected myself a lot in the workplace, because I started my career fairly young, and also I'm a female, and it was pretty much a man's world in that space, so the relationships could easily blur. And that's also, my husband and I work together in that way, that if a relationship becomes to a point where it feels like it's now uncomfortable for me, we would rather invite people over to our home, even if it's colleagues, and start a new journey, so that it's more a balanced and a safer and inviting environment by carrying and protecting that boundary. But I think one can hide behind that boundary so much that you actually don't care about the people. And I guess it's not always about oversharing, and I get that risk, but it's really creating a space where other people can feel safe, and if they need to share, at least there's a space for them where they can share. And then to just honor those commitments and really not speak about that to other people. I found that gossip can quickly create can quickly really erode the value of that safe space.
Absolutely.
Something one needs
so
to
quickly,
honor.
Sure. And just that, that walls, that on the other side of that boundary, as you mentioned, is that people, stay too far on the other side. It's almost like the high walls. It's almost like prison walls that they are building. But mainly it's because of them wanting to cope with them, being stressed, or not feeling they are able to do this, or not feeling that if people really knew who they were behind the mask, that they might get rejected or not taken serious or not seen as capable, or there's so many fears behind those large walls, so I just want to honor again the fact that it is a journey, and One cannot just rip open that wall. So for anybody that's listening or watching, it's not that we're saying, get rid of the walls, please. No, it's not about just ripping the walls out and saying, no, here I am. But that's also dangerous, as you say. It's a protective place. So it's first coming to a place of understanding how to guard your own heart.
Sure.
And then to be able to navigate that in the relationships, so that you can see, here's a line that somebody is perhaps overstepping, that I can perhaps have a conversation with them to show them how, can we do this perhaps differently. Sure. And I love the thing about you guys inviting people into your home, so that just changed the dynamics of the relationship as well. Such a lovely, engaging way of drawing people into a safe understanding of who you are and who they can be. So yeah, sure. So much good stuff. So just on that, I'm quite curious to understand the story behind this journey, as you mentioned, as we all sit here and think, so how did you get from being so far behind that wall, and feeling that you need to guard yourself, to a space where you have a gentle guarding, a gentle strength, that it isn't a Fort Knox wall or that it is barbed wire, but it is soft spoken, it's loving, it's kind, yet it's understood. And it speaks so much of a meekness, as well. So I'm so curious to hear the story.
Kind of touched on it in the early days. Yes. Within the first week of my career, I had a gentleman. He now passed on a while ago already.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I had him, a colleague, sitting in front of my desk in the first week of me entering my career.
Wow.
And he said, "You'll never make it because you're too soft."
Wow.
And that's really how it started, and why my pendulum quickly swung to the other side to make sure that I'm now not that soft and be a little bit more controlling and assertive. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it was a total swing to the wrong direction. And it wasn't from who I am. It was because I felt I had to be that way.
Yes.
And then almost when I realized that that's not working for me, I don't like that conflicting views inside of me. I don't like who I have become, because that personality is then the one that you also take home, and now all of a sudden you're controlling at home, and that's not who you are. So then I knew I had to come back to who I am, and I did that for a long period of time. I became comfortable with who I am, and I operated with that in the workplace. And it was only recently, 2 or 3 years ago, I was studying still in leadership, and I was busy with a reflection paper. And I thought about my leadership journey and the influence that I had. By that time, I was in a more senior position at work already. And I realized that I don't always bring my whole self to every situation. Some of the research refers to it as lines of intelligence. So I would bring my intellect, or I would bring my emotions, and I've now grown in it. But sometimes I would just hide my spirituality a little bit because that's not appropriate now. Or sometimes I would not have enough physical strength to bring to the situation because I did not have enough sleep last night. And I realized
being a mom of 3 boys.
They're bigger now, so it's easier now. So I realized that I'm not bringing my whole self. And I started asking questions. Why don't I have the courage? And for me, it was a fear thing. For me, it was I did not have the courage to bring my whole self. Some bits of my life is rather private. So my husband is he's a public figure in the area where we live. So I felt like my life is in a fishbowl. The whole community is watching. People are watching. And I created safety for myself when I came to work. And if I can hide certain bits of myself, then I feel less exposed.
Oh, that's great awareness.
And it really, it took time, lots of reflection to get to that point. But I really believe it's because the opinion of other people mattered too much for me still. I wanted their approval.
The opinion of others mattered too much. Wow.
Still for me. So I had to come to a place to realize whose opinion matters and what is just noise. And then I had to learn courage to bring that vulnerable space,
Wow.
vulnerability and courage, and the result was empathy
Sure.
and gentleness.
Sure.
But what I had to bring was actually just courage into the situation, to engage. When I see my colleague is struggling, I can see you're not yourself today. Is everything okay? Is there something I can help you with?
Wow.
Because you don't know what you're going to get and how you're going to cope with that. So I had to learn that courage. So it's a long journey for me, and I'm still growing. This morning I had to make a decision to engage something which would have been more comfortable just to leave. But I realized that I can make a difference and I can be of value, even though I'm just a ear there. And one of my core values is around stewardship, and is around leaving everyone in a better state than what they were before my presence arrived for that moment.
Sure, that's a big statement, eh? That's big.
Yeah, so that's who I want to be.
You can't then sit and watch. You have to engage. Yeah, sure.
And sometimes that's dirty.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's getting your hands dirty and getting tough things in your heart that you need to cope with. But it's all worth it.
Sure. Sure. And so now that you, and I can hear it's still something that is growing in you, and getting it to a more fine-tuned understanding now, even 2-3 years ago, where you had this add-on of revelation. What would you say is the reason for you wanting? What do you say? What is the legacy that you think you might be leaving behind, or the reason for you wanting to show up with your whole self? What do you think? What might be the lasting effect that you are desiring?
Yeah, I really want people to be in a better situation because they engaged with me. Whether that be a quick conversation or whether that be a long-term friendship, that we can grow together so that we all can reach our potential and impact the world. And be who we have been called to be, and to make that significant contribution. And we don't have to be kind of what the world tells us, what leadership is and how it should look. It's really around knowing that I am a gift and bringing that. And imparting that gift, but also allowing and helping other people to see that who you are, the way you have been created, is a gift, and we can grow in maturity, but you don't have to change who you are to have an influence and to grow in that space. It's really, for me, it is around stewardship, and it's around just obedience. I think that I can make a difference. And I can be obedient to that call upon my life. And I can engage because I have enough courage, and I can grow in courage if I don't have enough.
Wow. Because, in the end, it's looking back and thinking, so I've spent a lot of my time at work. And if there's many people that's listening and thinking, sure, I spend so much of my time at work, and if I'm not making it a place where I can also feel I'm allowing myself to matter, that I'm really engaging the space where I work in such a way where I show up, where I am myself, where I'm offering my gift. And I know that's a journey to get there, but imagine that, if we cannot or do not do that, the experience we will have looking back and thinking, sure, I've worked and I've perhaps have gained quite some skill and I've maintained perhaps a certain lifestyle, but did I really matter? And I think that so many people, so many employees, am I just a number? Am I, do I matter? And I think that's so many people's question in different ways. Some people ask it in a different way than others, and but I really think what you are now saying, Danelle, is really a key, and I really hope that for some people that is listening, and that one can hear some practical understanding of what it takes to really get to a place where I can decide and grow in order to fill a gap, to fill a space that really matters. That if I, like you say, come in, leave, the person and the situation changed because you were there. So and I really, so I heard something. So for some people, they really have some tough obstacles. For some, it's perhaps one major obstacle, perhaps something that have happened in their past, or for others, it's constant small battles, like whether that is a difficult boss, or difficulties at home, or however. And you mentioned, this first manager that was there that, really stressed you out with regards to you're not going to make it, and speak that kind of hopelessness to you. Is there perhaps something else that that you have overcome that taught you the value of who you are, and that what you bring is really a gift? Tell a little bit about that story of how did you find knowing what gift you offer?
I think that's a tougher question, and it's also something that is growing.
Absolutely.
One thing that I want to start with is I coped with life by putting everything into boxes, so that I can control it, and I have a handle on it, and then it's more predictable. Because I work full time, I'm a mother of 3 young children, I'm involved in the community. My husband is leading a public life where I'm pretty much involved. Also, I had all these facets, and I kept them apart because it was just cleaner. Because now I can fill this role and carry this hat. Now I'm a mother, now I can do this. But I started to learn that I must treat my life as a single thing. It's one journey for me, wherever I am, and it's still the same me that goes into every situation. And I had to start to think a little bit about who I am, what do I bring, what is my gift, how can I solve difficult things for people, how can I solve difficult business problems, or how can I solve difficult community problems, because I know I can solve difficult problems, as an example. So getting to grips with who I am, but also practically what my skill set is, and how that can change different situations. And taking and seeing, I often refer to it as one life. You live one life, and you need to have the courage to be seen. It's kind of the key things that I've grown into over this last while. To take everything as a single unit, and not think, now I'm at work, now I can only think about work, but really to allow myself to be flexible in stepping out of the work box and be a little bit more gentle or caring here. And I'm not saying take work home and play with your children at the office. That's not what I'm saying. I'm still extremely focused, but to allow yourself that flexibility to show up where it's needed in that space.
Awesome. So again, I'm hearing that just boundary in a healthy state, but also, what I'm hearing is that there's this concept of knowing that what your skill set, the whole understanding of what your strengths flow into, as I think I heard correctly, solving difficult problems, but also engaging with the heart of the person. How would you say, are you maintaining that kind of focus on that one, because sometimes one have a difficult morning and things don't go the way one planned, or however, and your focus might be, and I know that it might not necessarily be a focus thing, because now I'm interrupting myself, because as we grow in time, things become a little bit more automatic. So as we walk this journey, the longer we walk with it in an authentic mindful way, where we actually engage with things we become aware of. Nee.
Yes.
So if we you know, especially in a more safe place, wherever that is for each individual, where you in your safe place become aware of things in you that might be stopping you, you know, it's things that make you fear, you know, will take your courage away, or things that don't allow you to see what your strengths are or your skills. And yeah, and I think the more one really become intentional about reflecting in that kind of way and doing something about those reflections, like you say, actually putting the courage to that and live out that and live it out, you know, in a practical way. I think, you know, because that's how our brain works. That's just, you know, the more we do something, the easier, that's how we learn. And then how we learn that, the more we do it, it becomes a habit. And once it's a habit, it becomes a little bit more automatic. So absolutely. So I know that sounds simple. It isn't as simple. It takes discipline. It takes discipline to say, okay, something upset me now. Okay, tonight or whenever I'm going to take it to my safe place. I'm going to take it to my quiet time, to my place where I'm mindful and reflective, and I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to understand what is the fear behind it for me. Where does it come from? And how can I allow it to, for me to overcome whatever hurt or lie that is stemmed behind that fear. You know, so that one starts growing, and it becomes more naturally, and eventually, you know, it's more easier to flow like that in so many parts of your life.
And so I find the maintenance bit with other people somehow easier than being gentle with my own heart. I tend to notice that I'll more easily be gentle with you, but I'll be very hard on myself sometimes when I think I messed up, or I failed someone, or I failed myself in a situation. So maintenance for me is really around that thinking and reflection time, and to live light. If I pick up during a day that I now kind of, for me it's an image, like you're adding baggage onto your day. I now believe this lie, or I'm now very hurt at this, and this now influence my perception of these people. I can't carry those kind of baggages into my life. It's just unnecessary. So I try to live light and really repent to people, say sorry often. It's not that easy for me, but I'm growing in it. And to also forgive people, and also forgive myself, in that way staying light, so that I don't carry unnecessary baggage. But I also try and train myself in a practical way by making certain declarations about myself. So we have this in our house where we spend time together as a family, and we said, what do we see in one another that person does not believe yet about himself? So we made lists, so everyone has this. It's very practical. Sorry, I have small children. Awesome. So we have this list on our cupboards. Every morning, each one of us make a declaration out loud, and the rest of the family can hear it. And the declaration, it feels like a game for the children, but it's investing into their spirits and helping them believe who they are. So my declarations is around, I'm free to be myself, is the first declaration. I just tell myself, Danelle, you're free to be yourself. That means that the opinions of everyone does not matter. You're playing for a single audience, an audience of one, and you can be yourself. The second declaration is that I'm good enough. So I'm good enough to make a contribution. I'm significant enough to make a contribution, and my contribution matters. And my circumstances and environment is poorer if I don't bring that contribution. And thirdly, the last declaration is that I'm purposefully planted. So I tell myself every day, you're not in these situations today by accident. It's purposefully that you're planted in those environments, so you can make a difference and you can have an impact there. Because one easily believes the lie that you don't fit, you don't belong, or you don't matter, or you're not enough. And the moment those lies come upon you and you start to believe and you partner with them, you actually, it feels to me like I'm pushed out of my authority and I lose all my authority because I'm not grounded in the truth. So daily, I align
quite a discipline,
with those truths, and I've actually taken it a bit further, where I call it a daily office.
Wow.
So for half an hour in the middle of my workday, I pause. I actually plan it in my diary. I don't take meetings for that half an hour.
Wow.
And I just take a
Absolutely.
moment to see what has happened since my quiet time in this morning up to now that I need to deal with, that I'm someone that I need to forgive, or some truth that I need to take up. And then I deal with that so that I can live light. And then I can carry on for the rest of the afternoon, and tonight I can again reflect. So it's only this last year that I've been doing that, and I encourage people around me to do the same, to take that 30-minute breather and just to become mindful about what is happening in this space, so that you just don't run and you become, it's like a snowball. If we just start going with the flow, we're not intentional about everything.
Unpresent.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so those 30 minutes is an important part of my day, where I just realign a little bit, connect with the truth, and then engage.
Wow.
It's really practical, but it does make a difference.
But you know how awesomely disciplined it sounds, yet you know, I can see that it is something that is just a natural flow. It's almost something one can look forward to. You know, it's like your breather space. But it's such a good practice, because we understand that, you know, if we allow situations or conversations or other people's behavior to come and, as you say, attach to an experience or a question of, does this mean that person don't care what I just said? Does that mean I'm not good enough? You know, that I don't have something to offer? You know, the moment we start entertaining it, you know, and allowing this undisciplined thinking to carry on for however long.
It's a negative spiral.
Yeah, it's a negative spiral. And for some people, it's they allow it for a few minutes and it's terrible. For others, they go on for days. And, you know, not to mention for people that really get stuck in that way of thinking, really get stuck in believing that what they thought once, they just thought it was a question, and eventually it became their truth. Now they're stuck in believing that they're not good enough, you know. And so it's such a powerful testimony, firstly, that you are a testimony to it working, you know, just taking those thoughts captive, just taking your thinking, not allowing it, not entertaining it, because all of us have those questions of, am I good enough? All of us have those worth questions of, do I matter? Do I have something to offer? And the moment, and all of that, and why I'm saying, not, you know, like most of us have those kind of concepts running, or questions running in our mind often. You know, that feeling of intimidation or vulnerability sometimes, and it's because we live in a world where things happen to us, and parents that, you know, did not always did, you know, a parenting job in the way we wanted to be parented. There might have been something that we got lacked, and so forth, and you know, and those are the reasons why we then sometimes have these questions of, do I matter? Do I have something to offer? Am I enough? And if we now, as a person that's becoming aware of these questions in our mind, entertain them and allowing other people's opinion or words or behavior or situations to latch onto that, and then we make it grow, then it's going to bring us into trouble. So it's just so refreshing to hear practically what you do about it. So thank you for sharing that.
And I also think, Marianne, that people, we compare ourselves with other people, and that's so dangerous, and that feeds that negative spiral. And if we really can realize that we all are walking different roads and different journeys, and be okay with that, and purposefully not compare my road with your road and with someone else's road, then I think we'll also win more.
Oh my goodness, wouldn't we? Yeah, sure. Just to understand that, you know, physically it's not possible for us to walk the same journey as somebody else. You know, just understanding how our brain works, and not one of us have the same story, and it's so exciting. It's what also makes us complex and, you know, sometimes challenged in relationship with each other, but it's also what makes it interesting, fascinating, exciting, hopeful, and if we can unlock that and understand that and start walking this journey, as you've mentioned, of really unpacking and embracing who you are put together to be, and start living that and giving it as a gift to other people. It's so beautiful, you know, to hear it. I once heard somebody say that if you find something passionate in your heart about and you start serving others with it, it becomes a purpose. And that's so powerful for me. Like you're discovering this gift and you understand what you have to offer, and you're starting to offer this to other people, and it's really blessing them because they are being embraced as a person. It's really a purpose. So I just want to honor you, and I just want to encourage you to keep on doing your thing because it's awesome. And I want to thank you for your time spent with us and just your absolute wisdom that you've shared with us. I really appreciated it. So
thank you. It's really my privilege.
Anything else you wanted to add, or?
Oh, do I have to add something?
No, you don't have to at all.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's actually one thing that I am thinking about.
Yes,
now.
please, yes.
It's really when you spoke about parenting now, and I was just reminded of something that I learned from my father.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this relates now, but I'm just reminded, and I want to share around that.
Absolutely.
Where he told me and he taught me that whenever there's a difficult situation in your life, if it's an emotion or even it's in a complex environment where you need to understand, that you need to trace it, and then you face it, and then you grace it.
Oh wow!
And I think that's
beautiful.
That's so profound for me. Also to look into when you realize something in yourself where you're struggling or around in a situation where someone is struggling. Really try and understand what it is, and then face it once you've traced it.
Absolutely, that facing.
But then let's grace it and let's move on.
Wow, that's beautiful.
My last thought.
Yeah, and that's the courage of walking this individual journey of ours. You know, almost I want to say this internal journey. You know, it's that facing the negative. It's facing the hurts, because that really, if you start facing those giants that's kept you under. And one really starts experiencing that empowerment and just that humbleness that comes with that, you know, that we are all fallible and that we have our dents. We're not, you know, perfect. And but just walking that facing journey also allows you to be able to want to grace, you know, want to share, but also nobody can take that away. Once one have really faced it, nobody can tell you that you haven't, because you know that you know that you know. No, I did. I've put you down. So that's so awesome. You know, thanks for sharing that. It's so nice to remember it like that. You trace it, you face it, and you grace it. That's awesome. Thank you, Danelle.
Thank you, Marianne.
For being here. And yes, cheers.
Bye.